So today I got to pick up my new XMS500 twin head kit from Bowens. I'm pretty excited to unpack it, have a little look what's inside, and just get it set up. I'm not in the studio today, I'm at home, and all I really want to do is just unpack it, like I say, have a little nose, understand sort of what comes with it, because I've had Geminis previously, and just get a feel for the new product. Like, I'm a huge advocate of Bowens. I think they make fantastic products. I've had my Geminis for nearly 5 years now, so I'm hoping these guys will replace and last just as long. First impressions on look, sleek, really impressive. I quite like the quick release arm. Haven't played with it yet, so we'll see. So I've unpacked it now. What are my first thoughts? The travel bag it comes in is not dissimilar to the one previously known with Geminis. It's quite a cool bag. I know from previous experience it's sturdy, it does a job, mine still lasts. It feels really robust and really good. One thing I did notice was the power cables were stored separately, so they weren't within the travel case, they were within the box. So if you was a little bit over enthusiastic, I'd probably imagine you could end up sticking them in the bin or sticking them in the garage or the back of the studio before you sort of got to the bottom of the travel case. So bear that in mind. The power cables, as you can see over on the left hand side, were kept separately. But first impressions on the units is fantastic. Build quality is really good. So I've now unboxed it. I've got one of them on the stand, and what are my initial thoughts? Again, it feels fantastic. The build quality feels great. The quick release is so easy to use. Locks it into place, undoes, gives you the ability to pivot around, lock back into place. If you put a big softbox on there, it's going to be secure. It's really impressive, quite a clever design, and it saves all the sort of twisting around you'd normally have. So yeah, massively impressed with that. In terms of the back of the unit, power on, really good looking, gives you some warning indications via sound. It's very responsive as you move up. Once it tells you it's in the zone to fire, you get a beep that's run all the way up to 10. That's pretty impressive, I think initial feels fantastic. I just power it back down, back into here, and if you can have a little look to the front. So it comes with the standard, let me just align that back up for you again. Yeah, there we go. So by the way, I'm shooting on Sony R2, Sony A7 R2. I've got the 16mm E-mount. It's the original E-mount, and all I've done is taken off the inside of the plastic body seal, which will allow you to shoot from 3/3 into full frame. Just a little trick, just for those techie guys of us out there. So remove that. It's the same S-mount adapter, and you can also use that as a reflector, which is really cool. So if you're using that for backlight, or you want a really simple reflector with a really harsh sort of circle of light, then by all means this is going to do it. If you don't want a harsh circle of light, use a simple rule of just moving the unit backwards to broaden the distribution of the light. But that's solid. If you can hear, that's a solid bit of metal, which is pretty cool. A rubber guard, which I thought was great, because sometimes you pop stuff down and it just doesn't grip, whereas with that, stuck it on the floor, it's not going to kick around and get lost. In terms, we've got a normal flash unit, ring mount. Yeah, it's a pretty good looking bit of kit. So yeah, initial thoughts, I'm really happy with it. So I've got the remote control, which is this chap here. It comes in the pack. Let me just focus that on for you guys. So yeah, that comes in the box. The product code of it is the XMSR, and that's a generic trigger. Works on a 2.4 frequency, and you can be used across all manufacturers. So all the main three: Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji. I think Pentax have changed the hot shoe design, so it sits a little bit deeper, but bar that, it will work on absolutely everything. So what I'm going to do now is open this up and get them paired for the first time, so just to see how easy that process is, to get it firing. To do that, I'm going to stick it on my A7, and that'll probably be easier, as obviously I'm using this to record. So I've now unboxed the trigger. Let's just have a little play with it. So first impressions, feel wise, yeah, you know, it's a trigger. You know, it's a plastic body, quite simple in design. How it catches on using the hot shoe, takes 2 AAA batteries. You've got a jack going into the side, USB for firmware updates, and this dial control pad, which it looks really complicated initially, but you've got to bear in mind this is no longer just a trigger, you know, it's also a remote control, so it's pulling the functionality of the flash head up and down and changing features, so it's kind of got to be a little bit more complex than just an on and off button, and changing channels as such. To turn it on, there's just this little power key on the side. Let me just make sure I'm in focus for you guys, sorry. So yeah, she's back in focus. So in terms of navigating, the right key takes us through our menu system. So as you can see, I just push right once, takes me to my channels. I've then got my groups, can move up and down within those using the up and down key. Then got my mode, use it as a trigger or a receiver. I've also got my fast sync, turn it off, turn it on. Modeling, so do I want to turn it off or do I want to turn it on? That's great, so I can control that from here. Modeling, do I want it on free, do I want it on proportionate, or do I want to put it on auto? My head, on or off. So is it off? Let's turn it on. I suppose it's not paired, so it won't do that. Sleep time, so this will trigger my flash head to sleep within a 30-minute period, which I think is pretty cool. Sync, pre-cell or cell, how do I want it to sync? Recharge speed, how fast do I want the flash head to recycle? Now that's pretty cool. You might think, how would I use that feature? You know, if you've got a studio shoot on and you don't really want to be running them up and putting loads of mileage on your flash heads, you know, it's not about doing it as fast as possible, because you may need time between the shoots to sort of, you know, readjust things, realign. So you can turn it down to 50%. You know, it's going to be a little bit easier on the system to refuel the flash system over that period of time. So if I move through again, where did I get to? Recharge, display time, how long do I want that display time to be on? Trigger, do I want it to remote and trigger? Do I want it to just remote, or do I want it to trigger only? So do I want to be able to control the functionality of the flash head as well as trigger it? Do I just want to be able to control the functionality? So I don't want it to go off, but I want to move everything up and down, and then when I'm ready, I'll turn it to trigger only, and then you move it to trigger only, it fires. Now in terms of pairing, you move into this one. So you've got SP, which is start new pair. You've also got an unpair process and menu time. How long do you want this menu time? And it's going off really quickly, so I'm going to extend that. I'm going to put that up to probably 15 seconds. So straight out of the box, it's on 3 seconds. That's nowhere near long enough. So again, back through our channels, our mode, the rest of it. So I think the first thing to do from here is I'm going to bring the flash head a little bit closer. And then I'll show you the pairing process. I haven't paired these before, so I want to kind of, well, first of all for myself, understand how easy it is, and yeah, for anybody who's bought these, be able to do the same. So here is the trigger. First impressions, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm ready to go through the pairing process. I've got my trigger here. Now I haven't done this before. I had to read the menu to get an idea of how to do it initially. So first of all, what I want to do is enter pairing mode. It says searching, so from here I then push menu on the head, and when it says NP for new pair, I push that. So that's now searching for the trigger. Slave not found, enter to retry. So enter pair mode, searching, new pair. Pairing complete. Okay, so first time it didn't work, I just pushed the button again, it paired it. So by all accounts now, this should be ready to go. I'm going to turn it to, I don't know if you can see, I'll refocus it. Yeah, that was pretty easy to pair. The first time it said it, you know, it didn't pair. I thought, oh god, here we go. I pushed the button again, it did it straight away. So in terms of pairing, really simple, but it is a two-way process because it's more complex than a normal trigger. It's not just looking for a frequency, you know, it's controlling more across that frequency. I had to select the head to pair, so the head will pair with this trigger specifically. So yeah, a little bit more complex than you would imagine from a pulsar system, but as I said earlier, you know, it's a more complex trigger, so you can kind of half expect that. So I'm now up and running. So I want to adjust this. So I can see that straight away it's picked channel 2, Yeah, so what has it picked? Yeah, so channel 2. Yeah, I've got all that set. So I want it to be a remote and a trigger. So allow that to go back in. If I hold down this menu, I think that takes me back. Yeah, takes me back to the beginning. So if you're in any menu, if you hold back the center, that takes you straight back, which is pretty cool. Now, so we're all paired up now. She's working. I've had a little toy around with it, just really so I can navigate it before I show you how it's navigated, because otherwise I'll be fumbling around in the dark. So I've had a little play around with it. The remote, really simple to use, really easy to navigate through. Yeah, the dial wheel looks a little bit complex initially, but once you understand where all the elements take you, it's pretty simple to use. So as I showed you earlier, this right key takes you into the menu, and if I push up here, you can see the flash head is moving in sync with it, so which is pretty cool. So take it as far as I want to go. Where do I want to go? Yeah, cool. So let's ramp it all the way up to full power. Fire that. Boom, we crack out a 500 watt. If we pull it back down to something sort of, more manageable for this demonstration, you can see it's very responsive as a trigger. It's giving me the ability to control up and control down. If I want to control my modeling head, I've got a power output on here, which is pretty cool. So I'm taking that down, I'm taking that up. Now I don't think that's changing, and I don't think that's changing because of the settings that I've got within the trigger. So if I go through this menu and just go back, it's set on my channels, group 1, set as a trigger, fast sync off, fast sync on. I'll stick that on, that's cool. Fast sync time, 5 minutes. Modeling, do I want it on or off? As you can see, look, switching on, switching off, which I think is really cool. I've got this bolted onto the top of my camera. I'm shooting, I want to turn the modeling app off, I want to turn it on. I can do all that from the comfort of the camera without having to move up and down. The pain with the Geminis was always a case of moving up and moving down, making the adjustments, which is great. If your lights are set, if you use an app such as Set a Light, they're set, they're staying there. The only thing you're changing is the power outputs, and you just need a trigger to do that, and this effectively does it. So where do I want my modeling lamp? I want it on free, I want it on auto, or do I want it on max? Proportionate. So if I crank it on proportionate, do I want my head on, or do I want my head off? You can see that I'm switching the thing off, which is great. I've just finished what I'm doing. I need to go look at the laptop to see what the edits are doing once they've sent over from the camera. I can just switch my head, just power the head down, power the head back on, which is, I think, pretty fantastic. Now, do I want it to indicate? I personally like the noise. It lets me know what's going on in a studio environment. Some people may or may not. Indicator mode, I always have it on dim and beep. Sleep time, 30 minutes. This head will shut off because I've indicator 2 on here. Do I want to use cell? Do I want to pre-cell? If I change that now, you can see a little light going on and off. And that's because it's changing it from pre-cell, cell, or off. So, as far as I'm concerned, really responsive. Recharge speed 100%. So if I crank that down, I'm going to crank it down to 50%. That's still pretty fast to recycle. Display time, trigger and remote. So go back to the beginning by holding that down. Hold that down. Fantastic. Now if I turn this up all the way up, obviously my modeling lamp is proportionally probably not seeing it so well because I've got a couple of LEDs on to light up this whole film. As I turn that down, impressed with that. Now if for instance I wanted to, so initial thoughts, I'm a happy camper.